Hello everybody, and welcome back to Baduk Mindset. Today we'll be talking about how to build a training regimen. So, in my first Baduk Mindset video, I talked about never plateauing again. Maybe a little bit clickbait, but you gotta get those views somehow. In any case, what I outlined in that video is that in order to continually improve, to never plateau again, you need to understand what your weak points are and to isolate them. And so that sounds all well and good, and you might think about how other how other hobbies that you might do, in order to improve, you might dance or you might play guitar, play musical instruments, and what you might do is to slow things down, to play things very slowly or go through positions very slowly, and through that you learn. But the issue is that when you play Go, when you're playing a real game, you're not really isolating, you're using everything all at once. So that can be a little bit difficult. How can we try to improve and focus on our weaknesses when we're playing, we need to use everything at once? It's a little bit tricky. There are a lot of things that you might be able to do. For instance, playing serious games. So that's serious meaning that you play slowly and with intention, and with your moves being as best read out as you possibly or reasoned through as you possibly can. You can do life and death problems, so Tsumego, Tsuji. You might watch pro games or games of people who are stronger than you. You might read theory, so you might read books or watch lectures, or you might do alternative Baduk formats where you might play 9 by 9, you might play handicap games, or you might watch a lot of basics videos, which are quite popular on YouTube at the moment, where you watch somebody who is playing a weaker player and they're explaining their reasoning as they're going along, trying their best not to overwhelm with reading, but to use solid play instead. And all of this kind of has its place. And so the question is just figuring out what is the place for all of this stuff that you could possibly doing? What do you need to prioritize? What do you need to work on? So one thing that I outlined is knowing your style of play, but I didn't really talk about what the style of play really is. And so I'm going to go through a very basic rundown of it right now. So there are basically two types of players, and you might think of them in this kind of yin-yang kind of pattern, where you have aggressive players and you have calm players. So this is quite interesting. Let's talk about this a little bit more. Calm players are players who focus a lot on their own weaknesses first. They tend to be very knowledge heavy and they tend to lack physical power. And they accurately judge positions, but they don't read particularly well. I think that a lot of Western players tend to be calm type players, and I might get into that for it in a second. But for instance, if you watch me, I'm a calm type player, and what makes this happen is that I tend to be very knowledge heavy. I'm good at intuition, but at the same time, I don't read particularly well. I can and I struggle to exploit my opponent's weakness because I'm just not paying a lot of attention to them. On the other hand, we have aggressive type players, players who are very good at focusing on their opponent's weaknesses. They might even ignore their own weaknesses. They tend to be very reading heavy, and they kind of lack knowledge or not necessarily like simple moves because you can fight in a simple way and get good results. What I mean is knowing just simple positions like Joseki or just knowing what very normal moves would look like, having these kinds of priors. And often when they're looking at a board, they'll judge it as being insufficient for them. So they might look at an even result and they'll say, this isn't good enough. I need more. And this is where this aggressive approach comes from. It comes from needing more, not having enough all the time, seeing your opponent's weaknesses and going, you have weaknesses. I'm gonna come at you, and not having this kind of like strong prior intuition, which means that they're able to evaluate every move without a lot of prejudice, might I say, like being able to like not have these prior intuitions that mean that they don't see certain moves. Um, these are basically two types of players. What I want to emphasize is that one style of play is not necessarily better than the other. In order to become a strong player, you need to be both. You need to be strong at the calm style and you need to be strong at the aggressive style, which means that you're able to use what you need for the situation. That's how you become a strong player. I remember when I was a newer player, I remember aggressive players were frowned upon a little bit as being like, a little bit uncouth and, how could people play this way? But that's completely the wrong mindset, and that's gonna hurt you basically in the future. Likewise, just because you're a calm type player doesn't mean you fall into I remember they would always say like, oh, if you're an aggressive style player, then you win by overplays, and that means that you'll never fix your mistakes. But the issue can also be the same with calm type players, where they never play aggressively, and so they never learn to play aggressively, and so they can't. All this is to say is that there's no, as I mentioned, no one thing is better than the other. You need to be good at both of these things. Note that this type 1, type 2, aggressive, calm type play, this isn't something that I've made up. This is something that multiple, you can find this on multiple channels on YouTube, and I will link them in the icon. Yeah, that's the right direction. I'll link them up there so you can go and take a look. So let's talk a little bit about what training might look like if you're a calm type player. If you're a calm type player, what you need to work on is developing your fighting ability. And I can only give limited advice here because although I've broken my plateau that I had at 3Q where I wasn't able to improve, I'm still not exactly completely free of this plateau where I've completely learned how to play in a very aggressive way. But basically, the gist of it is that you should always get games reviewed from stronger players, and these stronger players should focus on your fighting issues. And that's something that they can only do if they know that this is your focus. So something that you should either have a teacher that knows your style of play or communicate this to them in advance. You probably by commenting on your own games and things to that example, or things to that extent. Otherwise, doing a lot of Tsuji and Sumego problems. So what you want to do is you want to do these things regularly, and as you do them regularly over the months that you're doing this, this will plug the shapes that you're kind of missing from your mind. You want to also find maybe games from stronger players, either pro games or if that's too advanced, and maybe like somebody who's like 5 stones stronger, and then just watch their games. You can just replay them on a board. You don't have to worry too much about analysis. Just seeing the moves helps you to challenge your intuitions and helps to keep your mind fresh. One thing that I haven't tried out, but that I have a suspicion might be quite useful if you're a calm type player, is playing more 9x9 and handicap games. So I'm gonna go into the future, I'm gonna go over how handicap games are something that is kind of misunderstood by I find the Go community. We don't understand it very well, and so we kind of write it off. But I think that if you play either as white or as black, it can be very useful if you're a calm type player because handicap games surround themselves around fighting. The 9x9 as well. It's perhaps not the same kind of fighting that happens on a 19x19 board, but it's a kind of pure reading and a kind of pure fighting that I think might actually help a little bit. This doesn't mean that you need to do these things specifically or exclusively, but these are things that you might want to sprinkle in there for variety. So what about aggressive players? In the same vein as with calm players, they should also play games and have them reviewed by stronger players. And instead of focusing on the fighting, the focus should be is on Joseki and the opening and these kinds of things. These are plugging the holes that, in the same vein as a calm type player, that they haven't quite been able to fill yet. This also means reading books and studying lectures and lots of basics types of videos, and also reviewing games of stronger calm players. And you might notice a theme here where perhaps a lot of you are calm type players, but you train as if you're an aggressive type player. And the other way around, if you're a calm type player, if you're an aggressive type player, but study as if you're a calm type player, then then this is where the plateaus come from, because you're not filling in what you need to be filling in. So this is basically where the core of the issue is. And then once you know what you need to do, now it's just a matter of programming it. So how do you schedule it? So once you know what activities you want to do, you want to know when you're doing them. So maybe like putting them into a calendar, these kinds of things, and then knowing how much you're doing. How much you do is totally up to you. If you want, you can play only a couple games a week, only a couple Tsumego sessions, maybe a couple of other activities based on what you need. And that's if you want to do very little, that's okay. And if you want to do a lot, that's okay. My advice is to do what works for you, obviously. Don't do what doesn't work for you. That doesn't make sense. But yeah, that's basically it. And this is basically what my training regimen looks like. So I have a notepad, and for every week I'll say, okay, week commencing the 22nd of May, 2023, I'll play this many games. I'll have Sumego sessions, so they're on 101 weiqi, you can do Guan or Task Do. and I should do maybe like 5 sessions, maybe roughly 2 or 3 of each. Then I should review 4 pro games, maybe watch some lectures, and maybe do some handicap games. Because when I go to my local Go club, I'm basically super stronger than everybody, which means I need to play a lot of handicap games. So maybe my training regimen at the moment isn't super perfect, but it's also based on what I like to do. So there's also a little bit of flexibility in there, just to keep me interested and keep me having fun with the game. But you need to make sure you have a good balance between what's fun, what you like to do, and then what you need to do, and making sure that you have a good volume of games so that you're getting in the amount that you need to do during the week. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about the time because getting stronger at Go takes is it's a lengthy process, and it's no different to if you were to be bodybuilding. Building muscle also takes a lot of time, and the anxiety really gets to people. With Go, it's the same. But I've also been on the other side of this, where I had a training regimen where I was doing a lot of memorization, doing a lot of theory, maybe a little bit of life and death problems. I didn't have a teacher, and I wasn't able to find out how to key into this more aggressive style of play. And what this meant is that had this plateau, and my training regimen wasn't working for me, and I wasn't able to figure out why it wasn't working for me. So in order to do this, as I mentioned in my losing streak video, what you want to do is you want to have regular check-ins, maybe once a quarter, maybe once a half a year, something along those lines, so that you can take a step back and analyze your recent play. Maybe if you keep a journal, then that would be useful as well, so that you can have something to look back upon. Or what is useful is having a teacher who knows your style of play, who's able to track your progress over time, and they'll be able to give you an idea of where you're at. All of this, I hope, should be useful for you. So now you know how to build a training regimen, when to know if it's not working, what kind of things you should really be filling it with. And I really hope that now that we talked a little bit about style of play and what to do about it, that you will be able to continue to improve. This is something that I was racking my brain about for a long time, and yeah, it's good to finally get this video out there. I think that I could have used this a couple years ago, but whatever's happened has happened. The best thing we can do is just do better for the people around us now. So if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe, like, comment, ring the bell, all the good YouTube stuff, and I will see you all in the next video.